Okay, I'd like to call the September 8th Lake Mills Public Works Board to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Fritsch,
Present.
Mr. Pickard,
Here.
Mr. Reich,
Here.
Mrs. Wolf,
Here.
and Mr. Temperley and Mr. Sharp previously informed staff that they would not be here this evening.
Okay. Next, correction and/or approval of the minutes of August 11th, 2015.
Move to approve. I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Item 4, questions and public comment. Seeing nobody in the audience, we'll move on to item 5. Discussion recommendation on utilities, cash flow, and debt analysis currently tabled. So I think we should first make a motion to take this off the table.
So move.
Second? Anybody?
Second.
Okay, motion and second to remove this from the table. Now we can discuss it. And Paul, you have some things to say?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments to get the discussion going. First of all, you've got the information from Ellers and Associates, and I think you've also got Steve's original memo and everything, so I won't rehash that, but certainly as it comes up in the discussion, we'll do our best to answer any questions. Just want to make you aware of a couple of things real quick. This has come up at the council level also, but they're always deferring it to the Public Works Board, so they're looking for your recommendation. And not to push you into to a decision or anything like that, but they're kind of waiting for you guys to do your thing. And then the second thing is, just to understand again as we discuss this, the decision is not necessarily to accept any kind of a rate increase or anything like that specifically, but to really kind of endorse or look at the idea of the plan that's being put together for rate increases, with the understanding that more than likely some are going to be needed given the projects that we've got coming down the pike here in the next 5 years. But also understanding that we are working really hard to keep these to a minimum. And I'm going to give you an example of that in just a moment here. It's very difficult to kind of play both sides here, if you will, in that we know that these rates have to be affordable, and that anytime we discuss a rate increase, it's a big deal. And even though on the water side, if we're talking a 10% raise, we're talking really a small amount of money, but it's still money. And I just want to really emphasize that we get that and we understand that, and we don't take these things lightly. And it's not a situation that because we can raise rates we're going to. It's simply not that easy. And the second part is, or the other side of the coin, as we've talked about, is that there are things that we have to do. And our current revenue, especially in the water side, is just not keeping up. And it's, the infrastructure is failing. And so we're paying a lot of money to fix water leaks. In fact, we just fixed another one today. As I mentioned at the last meeting, this is not the time of the year that you expect water main breaks, but it's something that I think we better get ready for and prepare for. So having said that, what I handed out to you just prior to the meeting here are two documents. The first document is the water rate increase that we proposed to the Public Service Commission. And I'm just going to go right to the bottom of the page, and you'll see that what we were proposing was 10%, or is 10%. And I think we talked about that a little bit at previous meetings. Something very surprising happened when we sent this in, and if you go to the second page, you'll see that the PSC is coming back and saying we should probably be somewhere more in the area of 24%. If you look down at the bottom box there. That's simply not acceptable. And so we did have a conference call with the Public Service Commission today and explained to them several things that we're trying to accomplish here. And also in the process, I should make sure you understand that we pointed out to them they left something very crucial out of their calculations. And that was how the electric department is doing. They were concerned that on the electric side, and Betsy, correct me if I'm wrong here, but they were concerned that on the electric side, we were not maintaining enough of a margin so that, they consider the two together, quite closely together, that they could support each other. Well, we pointed out to them that we had just implemented a rate increase there at the beginning of this year, and so that is not as big a concern for them now. And so they are going to go back and look at this again. But what we asked them to consider, and after some discussion, got them to understand, and they will be taking a very close look at, is instead of implementing a large rate increase, like 24%, to look at staging this over several years. And we asked them to do that for a variety of reasons. One is simply to make it more palatable for people so that they don't get hit with a big increase. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be increases, and ultimately that money will be paid, but it won't be in one large chunk. Secondly, we're taking huge steps, if you will, finally, in trying to get a handle on this water loss and but changing meters that we know are not operating properly. And so we're very confident. Now, to what extent, to what dollar amount, I don't know, but we're very confident that as we get into some places where we have not touched meters for several years, we will find meters that have not been registering and consequently have not been producing revenue. So our intention is, as we stage this thing over several years, is to not only spread the increase out over several years, but to find, if you will, lost revenue, or to find ways to not have to implement as much of a rate increase. And so I give you this information in the context of this discussion again, because the information that we got from Ehlers and Associates is that way, where we string it out over several years as opposed to large doses. And so as you do your discussion, I just ask you to keep that in mind and consider that we're attempting to have a plan here where we put revenue and ideas together over a long range as opposed to any kind of knee-jerk reaction or doing things as a reactionary thing. We want to take some more positive approaches to this, and at the same time keep very well in mind that people are going to have to bear some brunt here, and we want to make that pain as little as possible. So those are my comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Paul. Any comments, questions, or discussion?
Paul, what are the main differences between the document you just handed out? The first page is what the city prepared, and the second page is what the state came back with?
Correct.
Why the differences? It seems like the state has stated more revenue, much higher investment, much higher costs. Average net investment rate is over, it's almost 1.5 million higher from the state. Can you explain that?
I can do my best.
So I'm asking you to explain why the state did what they did, right?
Sure. I think there's probably, and again, Betsy, jump in, there's probably three basic reasons. One is we have not been earning our usual or our allowed rate of return, which is 5.25%. So they put 5.25% in here as our rate of return. We don't anticipate hitting that or needing to hit that. Second thing is they did not put the right number in, I guess, if you will, for the new building. And so some of this is the actual cost of the building. We had estimated, or we had put in, and I'm going to be careful here, I don't remember the exact numbers, but we understated the amount of dollars needed to pay for the new building.
The utility building?
Yes, I'm sorry, right. And then the final thing is that we're looking at this AMI program, putting in some AMI meters, they don't see any cost for that in here. And so we indicated to them that probably next year, we want to have some kind of an AMI program going. We don't have all those ducks in a row yet, but they didn't include any cost for that. And that's where we're seeing some increased revenue that they're not showing in this. And that's a really broad view of it. I don't, Betsy, do you have more detail there?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
So the second point you said was wrong number for the new building, and that was the first page number, first page had too low of a number? Or-
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So, from what you said, Paul, and what has been stated previous meetings, you're very worried about essentially worried about the infrastructure not keeping up with where we need to be in order to deliver water and having sewage and electrical, stuff like that. And having been on this board for a long time, I know that Lake Mills has been in the habit of doing minimal, this was years ago, minimal maintenance just to keep it going. So in other words, then, do you see, now you're suggesting, for example, we're seeing an increased failure rate of mains and stuff like that. And I read about the fact that the United States in general is falling behind in infrastructure and stuff like that. So in other words, do you see that, I hate to put it down to a simple penny wise and dollar foolish sort of thing, but is that essentially what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think if I understand what you're asking me, what we're looking at is the difference, Doug, between fixing a water main break at a cost of $4,000 to $5,000 for a 1-foot section, and incorporating as many water main replacements in road construction projects as possible. Now, I don't know if the projects that we've got lined up for the next year, or next 5 years, excuse me, are unprecedented in the history of Lake Mills, but I do know there's a lot of them, and big ones, Mulberry, Main Street, East Lake Park Place. Getting new infrastructure there, and I'm talking, water, sewer, storm sewer, all of those things are gonna help immensely. Now, in some of the older parts of town, on the west side of Ferry, we're totally surprised we're not having more issues over there because that's a very old section. The other part of that part of town is that everything's too small, so they've got water pressure issues over there. The other thing I'll mention here, and I'll try to bring it back together, we did this leak study about a year ago, and we know that we've got hydrants that are leaking. We don't have the dollars to replace them. That's included in this rate increase, is to fix those hydrants. So in as much as we're trying to stem the tide a little bit of infrastructure, we know we're not going to get it all real fast, but we are trying to put together at least a systematic approach to getting to, if you will, the worst situations. We're still going to have water main breaks. We're still going to have to make those repairs. But and the other thing I was going to mention, CP Avenue, replacing the water main on CP Avenue that we're doing this year. In fact, it's almost done. And then putting the line in on American Way. We really are going to have to look at something like that every year. Maybe not to the extent of those two, but picking out several blocks and going in and replacing them, even if we're not doing road projects.
Most of the cost in these capital improvement plans is for those big projects, South Main Street, East Lake Park Place, Mulberry, water main on Brewster, and those are not because those mains are constantly failing, it's because those roads are going to be torn up, and if you're going to replace the road, and if there's any issues, potential issues with the water main, whether it's undersized or just old, it's better to be safe than sorry. There's where the penny wise pound foolish saying fits, but it's not so much fixing the infrastructure that's currently failing as so much as updating infrastructure so that it doesn't fail in the future, because now's the time to do it because of the road projects.
Right, I'd agree with that. And the only response I would have is that we have issues on Main Street. We dig Main Street up fairly often, so that one.
Hopefully South Main Street, not North Main Street.
Mid Main Street, right?
Oh,
for the
okay,
stores.
downtown.
And, yeah, I think, you know, we've had some leaks on Mulberry, not nearly as many as other places, but your point is well taken, and you're exactly right. This is the opportunity to get these done, and, yeah, that's why I say we also are probably going to have to be looking at fixing infrastructure where we're not necessarily doing the top of the street. And, if I may, and I know you've got something you want to add, we might have to get a little more creative as to how we do this, you know. It might not necessarily be replacement, but we might have to start looking at better ways to bypass. You know, more small loops like we do with the electric system, as we can do that sort of thing too. So,
How would you do a loop?
well, I'll use downtown as an example again. It's more, in this case, it's more, we've got valves and pipes that we don't know where they go. And so when we go to shut something off, we're not exactly sure where to do it. If we could loop that, if we could see what we're doing, and as we've got Main Street dug up, we can find ways to loop a couple, 3 blocks down there. So if we do have a problem, we don't have to shut off the entire downtown. So much the better.
Like we do for electric?
Like we do for electric, and I'm trying to think of another example of where we would do that, but it becomes more a case of convenience for people so that we don't have to shut off large areas of people. And where I was going, and the comment I was going to make is just as we get calls about rate increases, we get calls about my water's out, my water's dirty, stuff like that. And so that's where we try to, you know, weigh both of them, rate increase or you're going to be inconvenienced quite a bit. And I just want to defer to you if you've got a comment there.
Just a couple comments. Just to add to that, I think some of what Paul's saying is that there's some valves that are been in the system so long, and just like the pipes, in those cases there may not be leaking, but the valves aren't necessarily operating properly when they close.
Because we didn't exercise them, right?
And so,
You're right.
and so at the time when you need to close a certain valve, it may not actually close. That's why you note when we note on the website about a water main closure or a disruption of service, we're stating an area that we think is going to be the extent of the disruption. But if a valve is not operating properly or does not close properly, that area extends during that disruption time. The other point I wanted to make was the comments about some of the projects that are coming up. A requirement by the DNR is to remove old mains, and a policy that was many years ago was to have water mains installed in the same trench as the sanitary sewer. Many of the projects that we're talking about are of those type in this list of the capital improvement plan. So there is an additional reason that as the road is being torn up, there is another reason to replace that water main because of a requirement by the DNR to remove those from the system.
So the DNR requires those to be removed from the system? No. Not if they're already in the ground, they don't.
My understanding is if we unearth them,
Yes.
we have to fix them.
And
Yes.
we're choosing to unearth them, though.
We are. Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is health?
Typical separation, today's code is 8 feet separation horizontally between sanitary sewers and water mains.
So they don't mix.
So the potential for mixing is reduced even more. Again, the water system is pressurized, so theoretically, the water should be forced out of the main. But again, it is a precautionary code requirement.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
So Paul, on the document you handed out, you went right to the box in the bottom, 10% rate increase. That is the desire or the recommendation from staff, or?
No, and let me just make sure we're clear. We're not to the point yet where we're making
Okay.
any recommendation on a water rate increase.
Okay.
What we did, just so you're fully aware, is we asked the PSC to consider 8% this year. Wasn't it? Was it 8, and 9? It's either 8, and 9, or 9, and 8. But so that after the end of 3 years, it actually, if you total them up very simply, it's 25%. We realize it's more than that because you're adding 8% to 8%. But yeah, we came up with a combination of over 3 years, approximately 25%. They have not approved that yet. They're still working the numbers, but I'm not sure how to word this. Our recommendation isn't ready to make right now. It's more a case of approving the idea of steps to it as opposed to a specific number. And I'm not sure if that's what's in the motion, Mark, or not, in the resolution. Do you have a resolution there?
Oh,
Resolution is just to accept the report.
yeah, it's just the same as last month.
The cash flow and debt management
It's
report.
to
Is
accept
this what you're
the
referring to?
Eller's report,
Correct.
Which involves stepping.
but not these steps. It doesn't include the 98989 or whatever. It's got the 10 or 11% number in it.
Yeah, Dwayne's got it up, and it's showing 10, 8, 9 for 15, 16, and 17, 0 and 18,
Can you-
and then 3% in 19 and 0% in 20.
But they included the water rate increase that was planning to be put in place, right, for 2015?
Yes,
And that was
correct.
how much in there?
They show 10%.
Right, which is what the city put in for.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. And I apologize. I was going back to our discussion today, and we were asking for even something less than 10%.
For the
And I-
next year.
I'm sorry?
10%, less than 10%, and then more the following year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand.
But I want to make sure that when we approve, or when you approve this, that it's not, you're not making recommendations for specific numbers, or are they?
That's right. We're not making recommendations for specific numbers. The cash flow plan is just a plan. It's showing, looking at the city's debt, the required revenue to operate. It's looking at all of those pieces and showing us what we should be getting for revenues to cover everything that we're expected to do in the future. So it's not, you're not saying by approving this plan that you're going to be approving a rate increase of the specified amount in here. This is what Ellers came up with that said this is what we should need based on the information that they have at this time.
Yeah.
And that's where Paul was cautioning too, that we're hoping to change out some of these meters. And through that, more fairly, these people are going to be paying for, our customers are going to be billed correctly for their usage. And then our revenue should increase, which isn't really reflected in these numbers at this time. So it's a plan, just to give
So
us
the plan is used as a guide then.
Exactly.
Are our revenues and cost structures, because it's Lake Mills light and water, is there a bright line between light and water? Or, and what about common infrastructure, and does a water rate increase help fund the electrical part? And does a electrical increase help fund the water part?
I wouldn't say they help fund, but the PSC does look at whether or not they could help support each other. They do allow that I don't want to use cross-subsidization, but that's kind of what it is.
Our bookkeeping is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no, please, go
Our
ahead.
bookkeeping is very definitely split between what's water, what's electric. But like Paul said, the PSC is looking at the two utilities as a whole when they're looking at some of our numbers. Just like he said, one could subsidize the other if it became necessary.
So there's still one legal entity, so to speak?
Yeah, it's all, it's the
But
utility, it's the city, it's all the same that way.
But they look at light and water together, but not sewer, for example?
Right,
Correct.
sewer isn't regulated by
So-
the PSC.
Oh, okay.
But I can tell you, over the years, our accounting has specifically broken them.
Yes, it's very
apart,
much
rather.
divided.
Well, I guess my question is getting to, there are many, many more electrical customers than there are water customers.
Yeah, I don't know what percentage it is, but there are more electric than water, yes.
So an electrical customer could be subsidizing a part of the utility that gives them nothing. If electric rates are used to cover water.
I guess,
It doesn't quite work like that.
Okay,
Good.
Even
Also-
if the funds we're using to subsidize one, it's accounted for and it's a debt from one to the other. So it's never like they're giving them money and they're
Kinda
never
like
gonna
them-
get it
They
back.
loan each other money.
They do,
It's like a
yes.
temporary loan if something comes up until their revenues would catch up.
that's a good way to, we call it due tos and due froms, right?
Exactly.
So-
So it's like a temporary loan. It's on the books. It shows
So
that one
So loan
owes
is a
the
better
other.
word than subsidize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, you can get into the minutiae of, interest rate, is this fair, is one up,
Yeah.
loaning more than the other, but it's, it's
Yes.
not subsidized, loan.
yeah.
No.
Well, and there's also a very practical aspect to it, and that is that in some cases, the guys on the electric crew will help the guys on the water crew and vice versa. So there's never a complete separation. There's always some mutual benefit, mutual agreement that those two will support each other. And as I mentioned, the PSC rep today made it very clear that she was concerned that the electric utility may not be able to do that. And that's why they were up to 24% to make sure that the water utility was able to put their reserves up adequately. By the end of the discussion, instead of looking at the 5.25% return on revenue, they were looking at 1.75%, with the understanding that the electric revenues would be there to help if needed. Is that, you see where I'm going with that?
Yep.
Does that make sense? Okay.
thank you.
I noticed another sheet that we've got is comparison between Lake Mills and surrounding communities, and seems that whether it's monthly or quarterly, Lake Mills is doing pretty well as we're down near the,
Pretty frugal.
yeah, that's the right word.
And I think, Mark, you did some extra work on that too, and.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and we realize that comparisons are good, and they give us a benchmark, but that's still money out of people's pockets. Whether it's lower here in Waterloo, it's still costing money if we have a rate increase, and we get that. But we do work very hard to, as I said, be very affordable.
Any further discussion? If not, could you read back the motion on the table?
Do you want me to read the full motion?
Well, do you have
Oh, I'm
a
sorry.
one-sentence summary of what we put on the table last time? Yeah, maybe it's in the minutes. To approve, well, just to approve the motion. So the motion before us is to approve motion 15-8-1, which is, if I can find it here,
It's not 15.9.1.
is it now 9-1?
Yeah.
It's okay, so just so everybody understands, I'm gonna say, 8-1 and 9-1 are probably the same motion, right?
Yeah, due to the table.
Just a different month.
It's just a different month.
Yeah. Same
table.
information in a different month, so it's the same motion to,
Recommend approval of the cash flow and debt management report for
Right.
the utilities to the city council, and does hereby authorize the chairman to sign the motion.
yep. Okay. So that's what we're voting on. No further discussion. Roll call, please. Oh, question. With 4 members here, one being the town member, of course, gets to vote on this, correct?
I thought the town could vote on it because it does have an impact on,
Electric,
yeah,
sewer,
because it's all 3 utilities, even though, that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, that would be my understanding. I'm not gonna be the ultimate authority on it, but it makes sense.
so as far as a quorum is concerned, then it's 4 members voting. That's
I
my-
say let them vote.
That's my
It
understanding.
seems appropriate to let him vote.
I intend on voting.
Well, not with,
That's my intention as well. Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
call, please.
Did we have a motion
Yes.
to adopt
Yeah.
this? I know it was to take off the table.
So the motion is taken off the table, and the motion is to approve 15-9-1.
Right.
So, roll call.
Mr. Pickard?
No.
Mr. Reich?
No.
Mrs. Wolf?
aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion fails because it
Fails.
did not get a majority. So, I asked the question and I voted no because I wanted to just send the message that, I have concerns. I think that we need to do the work, doing the sewer, water, main type work when the roads are torn up, but I have concerns about the overall cost. So, that's the reason for my vote.
The overall cost of the projects themselves?
Well, no, the overall costs that the ratepayers have to pay. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Do you have an alternate recommendation you want to make?
I do not.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, this will go to the council then as you're making no recommendation, or?
Well, if anybody on the board would like to make a different motion, they may.
Well, the recommendation as it stands now kind of fails. The board, Public Works Board is making, I guess, in a sense, no recommendation because this particular motion failed, unless there's an alternative motion.
And that's what I'm asking,
And
just,
we
yeah.
need to know what to tell the council. on
right.
that.
So the council should get the mission that, the board was split, and so there was not a unanimous one way or the other. There was, some concerns. I think that's the way the message should go to the council.
And so the concerns are the overall cost, the overall dollar increase?
Yeah, I
Or-
mean, the sewer is not that significant, but the water percentage increase, the electric, to a lesser extent than the water, but still significant increase there.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear.
And does anybody else wants to say anything about?
Yeah, I guess I gotta say, again, I understand the worry about costs and increase, but again, I worry that we're gonna take and put stuff off and it leads to ultimately where we've got much more major problems down the road, like we had with the utilities previously, with the electric utilities, I remember Al Liu coming in here, our Public Works Director previous, coming in and talking about one stretch of cable that had been spliced something like 20 times in order to just maintain service. And we paid for it. And I don't want to see us getting into that practice again.
Any other comments?
I reflect, and the reason I voted no as well was because I reflect the same concerns that you do, Mark, with the overall cost, and I personally would like to see, I know that that the Ehlers report, it kind of separate, it looked at the three parts of the utility with each of the plans, but I think there needs to be some more complete work done before we can make a further recommendation.
And again, just to be clear, so complete work on, as opposed to Ehlers doing theirs, to actually look at what very specific rate changes might be? Is that a good way to say it, or am I?
Yeah, I am a little bit confused by the difference between I'm not sure that the explanation, I think you did a pretty good job tonight, but I'm not, I'm not completely comfortable with the difference between, the state, the two numbers here, 10% and the 24%, almost 2.5 times. So I'm a little confused by that, that they're so far apart. I'm a little confused at Paul, when you said the state took into account the whole cost of utility building, but it wasn't in this, in the other worksheet. I don't know why.
I don't either. And would be the waters portion. There's a percentage that's water and percentage that's electric. In the numbers that our person put together, it was quite low. When they looked at it again, the PSC looked at it again, they figured it much higher, based on the percentage of usage in the building and that sort of thing. So we can get a better explanation on that, for sure.
All right. Moving on then to, got a bit of a mess here. There it is. Item 6, discussion or review of capital improvement projects.
All right, again, I think it was Doug, just wanted kind of an update on how things went this summer. And so we've got several projects, and Dwayne's been working on some updates and some budget numbers and that sort of thing, so we'll turn it over to you.
All right, well, I think we'll start out with the first project that really was taken on this spring was the street department, public works crew worked on the storm sewer project on Fargo Street, which was a storm sewer project that was serving Browns Court and the construction in that area. There was obviously a cost savings related to being able to do the work in-house. There was some cost savings because labor is already included, work that's already being done. So there was good work done by the crew. I know the crew used to do a lot more of that in the past, and was very interested in doing that again in that case. Project came in, that portion of the project came under budget. Madison Street, Circle Drive.
Is it completed 100% or
Browns Court or the storm sewer?
Browns Court and Fargo?
Browns Court and Fargo Street is, I would want to say, about 99% complete. I am aware that there are two trenches from the gas company that need restoration. We'll clarify that. There is also I understand there's a cracked apron on one of the blocks. Brandon was unable to come tonight. I'm sure he has a punch list that he is running with the contractor, but as I understand, the final piece of the asphalt was paved this past weekend. There was a driveway that was remaining, and there was a manhole repair that was remaining, and I understand that that has been paved now. So at this point, it is probably in punch list stage on Madison Street. I'm sorry, on Browns Court and Fargo Street. The next project would be included in that project is Cook Street. I believe that is in the same stage. Pavement is completed. I believe they're in a punch list stage there as well. Paul?
Yes, correct.
Circle Drive as well was included in that. There was Circle Drive drainage improvements as well as Ferry Drive drainage improvements. That is all included in that large project that we've been talking about, again, in a punch list stage, but that project was really done quite earlier in the spring. Next project,
Go ahead, no, go ahead. Madison?
probably largest project remaining then would be Madison Street and the work that was done there. The street department worked on repairing some manholes early on, established what areas would be replaced as far as curb and gutter. The intent with that project was a mill and overlay. Again, to reiterate, and I think we've talked about that in our tour and mentioned it, this was a project that was last done in 1985. In 85, the DOT did a mill and overlay on that street. There is concrete, old concrete street under that pavement. Even though there was a mill and overlay done this year, the reflective cracking will occur in the near future. The intent is that the street department will crack fill those cracks as they appear in the next couple of years, and that we would potentially look to chip seal or seal coat that street again in the next 5 to 10 years to extend the life, knowing that there will be reflective cracking. A couple other things that are included in that project: we did repair some of the manholes. Some of the manholes we will go back. I believe the treatment plant department would like to put some chimney seals in some of those manholes. There possibly will be some lining of the sewer mains in that area. It was determined there was a sewer televising work done before we looked to do the paving, and those televising reports showed that any repairs that needed to be done to the sanitary sewer could be done via lining and lining of the manholes. So that is a project that potentially the treatment plant will do as far as maintenance in the future. At the minimum, they'll probably go back and do the chimney seals here in the near future and probably replace some of the manhole covers that are out there. Again, that can be done without disturbing the asphalt. I know the street department would like to get back out. There are areas, the curb was not all replaced, of course, obviously to keep the budget lower on this project. We replaced some that was in dire need of replacement. Other areas probably need to go back now and be patched between the new asphalt and cracks that are in the concrete curb. The full intent is that the street department will get back out there yet this fall to do that. Anything more, Paul, on Madison Street?
Nope, that's good.
All right. Brookstone and the crack filling. So the intent was to seal cracks and have the county come in and do chip seal, which occurred about a week ago. I believe if it wouldn't have rained today, the street department was looking to clean up the chips that are remaining in that area. That probably will happen later this week. The amount of chip sealing was dependent on how much crack filling was completed on the day when the county arrived. There is full intent, if the time allows, to go back and do additional crack filling if time allows yet this fall before the snow flies. There is a long list of items that is on the street department's list of things to do yet this fall. So the extent of that will be determined by the weather. We can talk about a number of things that have been completed. And Paul, I'll let you jump in too. Earlier in the year, there was some auction of some equipment that was included, not necessarily a capital improvement plan, but There was a cleanup of a number of vehicles, correct, Paul?
Right.
The street department also worked on adding the walking paths at Wells Park. If you recall, there was some extensions, but those were completed this year to all of the ballparks. Probably in 2014, but the completion of the crosswalk at College Street, that was really kind of a fall, winter project that happened last winter. So may have been probably more in 2014's budget. If you notice, I believe there's, the Sharrows are going down on South Main Street. There's another project that is underway.
Are there
Got-
any specific things you've got questions on, or?
Just, what was the last one you said?
The Sharrows, the markings on South Main Street for the bicycle shared use, shared lane use on South Main Street. One thing we haven't talked about is something that the department is looking to do here in the near future. Because of the funds are with the chip seal, there are some funds available, and the extension of some of the Madison Street work, we held off on replacing a portion of Prospect Street between Madison and Ferry. This would be on the far north side of the Madison Street project. That block is got a Pacer rating of about a 2. The pavement is in dire need of help. The sewer and water in that area has been good, so replacing that surface would not be an issue as far as doing the underground. So with the budget availability, the intention is to go back in and replace the stone and asphalt along that block.
Is that a mill, or what kind of work is that?
That's probably going to be a full excavation of the asphalt and the base that's there. At least that the intention right now would be to have the street department do that work and add the paving to the Wolf paving project for Madison Street, which would be an extension of Madison Street's project.
So I'm going to ask a question.
Sure.
Do you think city staff which is more important for city staff to do? Work on one block with an excavate, or do seal cracking on multiple blocks? You understand why I'm asking the question?
I do understand the question, and
Because
I would say both. I would say
because chip seal and crack filling are the most important things for maintaining the integrity of a road. That money is well spent. You get that money back 10 times compared to rebuilding a street.
I would agree that crack filling and maintenance should be a high priority as well. Yes.
So I heard you say, if time permits, and I heard about this, so I wanted to you offered me a chance to make a point.
You would
make my
prefer
point.
you would prefer to see it the other way around.
Yeah, because it's gonna save money in the future.
Yeah. The debate we have internally is manpower.
Well, you only have so much.
Right.
That's the problem, right?
Yeah, and and I agree with you that sealing cracks is a good way to do it. It takes a lot of guys time to do that sort of thing, and
I saw a Dane County Department crew down in Cambridge. Man, those guys, they were just going to town, They must have done half a mile a day or something, I don't know. But they were cruising.
yeah.
Routing out the cracks, blowing them out, and then they had another, it's a big, I don't know if there's 10 or 12 people on the crew too, but they were
Okay.
going to town.
Yeah, okay.
So,
We don't have 10 or 12 people.
another way is to hire a crew that, I don't know if there's crews out there that's all they do. Is there private companies that do that for a living, that do a good job?
We'll have to look into it. I don't know. Yeah, then we have to see what the cost is, of course.
Because crack filling and chip sealing, that's, it saves, if the road's not too far gone, it just really lengthens the life of the road, correct? That's what I've been told.
Yeah. Yep.
Do we have anything coming up in the, other than the possible crack filling on the road, anything else coming up this fall? We
Well,
aren't
the
doing any
usual.
sidewalks, are we?
No, we're not doing many sidewalks. I mean, we've got some that we're gonna do, not nearly as extensive as we've done in the past.
The concrete poetry.
Yeah, we're putting in the poetry slabs. We got 3 of those, you know what I'm talking about there, that the Arts Alliance has donated, and so where we will be replacing sidewalk, in Commons Park, we'll be putting in the poetry pieces. We will be putting in a handicap ramp, in Commons Park on the, kind of the north, well, no. Because it's so askew out there, it's over
Northeast.
by the bank of Lake Mills, kind of east of the bank of Lake Mills. We'll be putting in a handicap ramp. And then the usual leaf,
Fall brush pickup.
brush pickup, yeah.
Is there gonna be any
Stuff.
change in that this year, or what we've done in previous years?
Do you have a suggestion?
No,
Okay, not that I know of. I mean, it's a bit of a roll of the dice every year as to when Mother Nature's gonna push the leaves off the trees, but, as far as our process, once we get started to keep going until we can't anymore, with the leaf pickup, the brush pickup, we'll probably schedule, I'd have to look at the calendar, I'm not sure when we usually do that. I believe it's mid-October or mid-November, where we do our final fall pickup. But that'll be similar. Yeah, we play the weather a little bit.
Final weed mowing, crack filling we've talked about.
Yeah.
Asphalt patches.
Yeah, we'll be fixing our water main break patches here in the next week or so. Wallace Park, if all goes well and we get the county in here, we'll finally get that paved, the parking lot at Wallace Park paved.
You forgot to mention the water main project. It's in full swing right now, right?
Oh, you mean American Way and CP?
Right out
Sure.
your work door.
The water main project that's underway. As you mentioned,
Yeah, CP Avenue, right?
CP Avenue is, as I understand, they are ready to connect the services over. They've got one more connection to make, and then transfer the services. And then obviously any restoration of the trenches that will be remaining. As soon as that is completed, they'll probably be moving over to CP, to American Way. So that portion of that project has not started yet. I believe the completion date on that project is late October, early
Late
November.
end of October, I think. They have to be done and out of there.
So to my knowledge, they're still on schedule.
All right.
Other projects that might be yet this year or through the winter was mentioned at the council meeting, the award of the bike trail on the south side. The bike trail that runs from St. Paul's or the school property back to the Drumlin Trail.
So who would be doing that work then?
If it would be City Cruise
City Park or City Street?
Street.
oh, by the way, not too many years ago, we had a salt problem in trying to get salt. How's the salt situation?
Much better. Yeah, we've already got a bin full, and we have to make our order back in May, so we've done that. I don't see a problem. In fact, we actually have some of our salt stored in Watertown because we didn't have enough room for everything that we ordered. It's really an interesting
What are prices
project.
like now?
They were up. I can't quote them right at the top of my head, Doug, but they were up this year. They've kind of been creeping up a little bit every year. And we're still, we're still kind of in the brine experiment. And so we're still ordering very close to the amount that we had in the past. And I'm anticipating we won't have to do that. Now, again, the winter will dictate that a little bit, but the brine anecdotally is paying off. I can't give you specific numbers tonight because I wasn't ready for that question, but it's helping. And I think we can cut down and when with the county, the new county shop now, they're going to start actually making their own brine, so we'll have a better access to it. In the past, they had to go to Waukesha County, and then we simply bought it from them. Everything goes well, it'll be much closer to us.
Multiple municipalities are going to that brine system, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's the way of the world right now.
Yeah. Anybody, anything else on that subject?
I'd like to say that driving on Madison between Main and Pine Street is absolutely a delight now compared to what it was. And I'm wondering, I know that the county owns from Pine through up to County V and beyond. I know that Steve talked about trying to synchronize a project with that. That obviously didn't happen. Any chance of that in the future?
Our contact at the county is Brian Udovich, and Brian's not making any commitments. I know he was very disappointed they couldn't coordinate it with us, but I won't speak for him other than he's not making any commitments on when they might be able to do that. We've got drainage issues out, or not drainage, yeah, I guess drainage. I mean, water runoff issues that are causing some problems for the folks now north, and our hope is they'll pressure them into doing something. So.
Great job on Madison, though.
Till those cracks open up, huh? Just where the concrete's cracked underneath, it'll eventually come through, or not eventually, but a couple of years.
Correct, it will.
Yeah.
But again, the price of the work that was done compared to a full construction was
Yeah.
dramatically different.
Yes. Yes, those full constructions are expensive.
Back to your point that was made before about crack filling and chip
Yeah.
sealing.
Anything else on item 7 or 6? If not, we'll move on to item 7, recommendation for future agendas. I don't know if, Paul, you know if anything coming up?
We hope to be able to make a presentation on AMI next month. I think I know we're close to a recommendation. It's just getting all the data together and showing you what we got.
All right. Anything else? If not, we'll move on to item 8, and I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.